So tonight's shir is dedicated l'schus Moshe Jaffa, the son of our beloved Talmud Mordechai, and his wife Abigail, in honor of his bar mitzvah this Shabbos. This is the whole thing that he should grow up to be a Talmud Chacham, a Yirei Shamayim, a Bal Midas Tovos, and be a source of nachas and pride to his parents. So, you know, the minhag in many kehillas by Yidden is to say twice a day, every day, at the end of davening, from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Shmini Atzeres, the kapitel Chav Zayin in Tillim that begins with the words Ledod Hashem Oiri. This minhag is already brought by Reb Chaim, Reb Avram, from Aram Tzoyve, who was nifter in 1655. He was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Vital, who was nifter in 1620. So it's Avada minhag that's Yisoidosoi Baharei Kodesh. No, this kapitel talks about B'kroiv olai mereim lechoilas besori zorai va'oi vayli heima koshlu v'nafolu. It talks about im tachane olai machne lo yira libi im tokum olai mulchama v'zoisani b'iteach. No, David was a warrior. He was engaged in many wars. So the Pshutei Shel Mikra is talking about these wars, and he's expressing his betachin in the Rebbeinu Shalom. But how is this connected with the Chodesh Harachamim V'Haslichas? So probably it's also referring to the internal war that we are engaged with during these days. The Mulchemes Hayetze, as the Orach Chaim HaKodesh writes at the beginning of Parshas Kiseitze, he says, Kiseitze la milchama al oivecha l'hoyer ha'adam. This pasuk is coming to awaken a person to realize. Ki b'yitzi asoi mei oilam ha'elyon. As soon as his neshama leaves, goes out of the oilam ha'elyon, lovoi la'oilam hazeh yeh muchen l'milchama. Kiseitze la milchama. As soon as you're out of the oilam ha'elyon, it's a war. Ki lo yachshoiv she'ein tzorich tigboires l'nitzachon zeh. You shouldn't think you don't have to need the gvura for this nitzachon. Al adirabah l'zu yikara milchama. This is the real war. Al derech oimram, like the Mishnah says in Ovis, that ezehu gibor hakoivesh es yitzroi she'ein gvura gdoila mizu. L'zeh omar la milchama kiseitze la milchama, which is a lashon of the known milchama, the milchama, because it's the milchama of all milchamas. V'oimrei aloi vecha, that he says it's not like that you're waging a war to conquer a city, that if you get fed up, you just leave it and you go back home. He says, no, this is oivecha. This is if you're not gonna fight against him, he's gonna fight against you. He's not gonna let you go. So from the moment of Kiseitze, a person is la milchama. The Chayvitz Halvav is in the Sha'ar Yichud HaMaaseh, Perek Hey, writes, V'omru al chosid. They say about this pious man, Shepaga anoshim shavim mimolchemes oivim. He met people coming back from a war. V'sholulu sholol achar milchama chazakeh. They're coming back with a loot. Amalohem shavtem min amilchama aktana shoylim sholol. You came back from a small war. Aval his atadu lemilchama agdela. Be prepared for the big war. Amru loyu mahi amilchama agdela. What is the big war? Amalohem milchemes hayetze v'chayloisav. Uminateme achai. He says it's a chiddush. It's a wonder. I mean that ki kol oyev sheyesh lecha. Any enemy that you have, if you beat him once or twice, he'll let you. He'll let go of you. He'll no longer consider fighting against you. He knows that you're stronger. Whether you won the battle, he won the battle, he's not going to let go. The Einoi Mekel Biktano, Shebiktanos, the Yetzirah doesn't take lightly even the smallest thing. If he can beat you in something very small, that's significant, that important to him. Because he knows he gets something that will lead to the next thing. He says, but now he concludes that the Yetzirah will not stand against you if you stand against him. That the Nachash, who represents the Yetzirah, his truk is to you, but you will rule over him. Al kain al yav hilchot dvaroi v'im otzmu chai loisov v'al yav chitcho inyonoy. So don't be afraid of him. In other words, he's saying that if a person realizes that this Muhammad is the Muhammad, and it's a Muhammad that goes on from the beginning till the end, it's a Muhammad that's continuous, he might despair. He might fall into Yush. And that's why the Chayves Alavavis concludes, no, that Va'ato Timshol Boy. In Shulchan Aruch, in the beginning of Orach Chaim, the Mechaber says, Yizgaber Ko'ari, Lamoid Ba'boike La'avodas Boiroi. Yeah, he should strengthen himself like a lion. So the Taz says, Iker Gevura Keneged Yetzirah. She'amru Ezel Giber V'chulei. V'amar she'yizgaber Ko'ari. A lion is not afraid of any other creature. Even though the Yetzirah might be takif mimenu, but like the lion who's not afraid. In other words, it's a function of courage. So it would seem that this kapitel of Ledavad Hashem Oiri is talking also about the spiritual war. And David HaMelech is repeating over and over again that he has bitochen in the Rebbeinu Shalom that he will succeed. He says, LeDavid Hashem, Oiri, v'yishi mimi iro, Hashem mo'oiz chayai, mimi efchod, b'kroiv alai mereim lechel es besori. So he's mentioning three different things. Oiri, Hashem is my light. Yishi, my salvation, and he's mo'oiz chayai, which means he's my strength, really a lotion of a fortress, a military fortress, that Hashem protects him. And therefore, mimi ira, mimi efchot. So what are these three things? You know, the Mesilas Yesharim in Perek Gimel says that Chazal say, Hu Masha Amru Chazal, the Gemara above Metzia, that Perek Gimel, Toshe, on the Pasuk in Tehillim, Toshe schoishech v'yehi lailo. Chazal say that Olam Hazeh is doimel l'layla. And now the Mesilas Yesharim gets really excited about this Maimer Chazal that Ha'olam Hazeh is doimel l'layla. And he says, V'hovein kama niflo ha'ma'amor ha'amiti hazeh l'misha ma'amik l'hovin boy. Okay, so he says like this, Ki hinei choshech halayla shnei minei to'u yois ef shelo sheyigrem le'ein ha'adam. It could cause two types of mistakes. Or yechasa es ha'ayin, ad shelo yireh mashu lefonav klal. He might not be able to see anything. Oy sheyate oisoy ad sheyeroe loy omud kilu hu adam. I'll think a beam is a person. V'adam kilu hu amud. These are the two kind of mistakes that darkness can bring. Now, Ilamole HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oizrei Chazal say, so we wouldn't be able to overcome the Yetzirah, and the Yetzirah is compared to darkness, which brings about the either that I don't see, or that I see things and think they are something else. So that's the David Hashem Oiri, is that Hashem is my light, that I should see what's in front of me, I should see what's right, and I should see what's wrong. I shouldn't think that an Adam is a amud and an amud is a Evan. and an amud is a adam. But that's not enough, because even when you know what's right, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to act on it and do what's right. So it's not enough oiri. There also has to be yishi. The yishi he's my salvation. He helps me overcome my negative inclinations, and I'm able to live a life based on what I see through the oiri. But that's also not the end, because, even after somebody knows what's right, and even he does what's right, he might fall back, he might regress, and therefore he also needs Hashem mo'oz chayai. So, which is Hashem is my fortress. So, David Hashem oiri v'yishi mimi ira Hashem mo'oz chayai mimi efchot. And he continues, B'kroiv olayim ereim lecho les besori tzorai v'oivai li hema koshlu v'nafolu. They stumble and they fall. So, the pasuk says, Eile barecha ve'eile basusim v'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu nazkir hema koru v'nafolu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisoidot. So, they are koru v'nafolu. But we don't say that we are not koru v'nafolu. We say v'anachnu kamnu v'nisoidot, which means that even if we experience a koru v'nafolu, we have the ability to rise up again. Kamnu Vanis oidod, we encourage ourselves. So in other words, oiri, yishi, mois chaye. But even if after all that, I fall, kamnu vanis oidod. Even after all that, heima, koshlu v'nafolu, but I know how to stand up after an afila. So that's the fourth madrega. And now he says, Im tachane olai machne lo yiro libi, im tokom olai mulchama, bezois ani boiteach. So what's bezois ani boiteach? In this I trust. In what's the this? It's not clear. Rashi says, B'masha omar lamaylo Hashem mois chaya. That he said, Hashem mois chaya, in that I trust. But the Radak says, Bezois ani boiteach, bezois ha'amire she'omarti, ki Hashem oiri v'yishi u'mois chaya. So he trusts in the zois ha'amire she'omarti. What is that supposed to mean? It would seem that the amire she'omarti is that I said, Hashem oiri v'yishi mimi'ira, Hashem mois chaya mimi'efchot. And that amire is an expression of my betochen. And betochen is in itself a reason that we should be saved, we should be helped. In other words, haboiteach b'Hashem chesed yisoy vevenu. And therefore, bezois ani boiteach is bezois ha'amira she'amarti. Since I said Hashem mois chaya, since I said Hashem oiri v'yishi, since I worked on my midas habetochen, bezois ani boiteach, that itself gives me betochen. Like Al Derech the Dazikenim in Bali Atoysa says on Vayiro Yaakov Ma'oid Vayetzer Loi in Parshas Vayishlach, that it was Vayetzer Loi because he was Vayiro. So when somebody is Vayiro, he really has a reason to Vayetzer. And when somebody is Mimiro, somebody says Hashem Mois Chayai Mimi Efchod, that in itself is something to have bitochen in. The Sfas Emes in Parshas Shoftim Tov Reish Lamed Daled says, Hayore me averes shebiyodoi patrosei Torah. So the Torah parts him from going to war. Nimtzo shekol sheyesh lo odom milchama. Anybody that experiences a battle in his life, michlal ki yesh lo koyach lehilochin, because the Torah parted those that don't have the koyach lehilochin. Uksiv im tokum olai milchama bezois ani boiteach shal yidei milchama atzma. In other words, I trust that if I wasn't able to deal with such a milchama, I wouldn't be in this milchama. So im tokum alay milchama zoktis vasemes bezois ani boiteach. I have betochen in the milchama itself. The milchama teaches me that I'm capable. That I'm capable. In other words, yeah. So the Ibn Ezra says. Bezois ani boiteach, yesh oimrim ki bezois, hi hashe'elo hanizkeres achar kein. That im tokum alay milchama bezois ani boiteach, Achas Shalti Me'ez Hashem. That he has betochen in the Achas Shalti. Not clear what that means. Either it means that since all I'm asking for is L'Shem Shamayim, is Tzorech Gavoya, that's what gives me the betochen that my tefillas will be answered. There's also Tosfos in Perek HaMakabel, Daf Kovov and Bov Metzia, where I won't get into the whole sugya, but Tosfos says that when somebody davens for many things, so his tefillah will not necessarily be answered. But if he davens just for one thing, then it's a teva that his tefillah will be answered. As I state in Tosfos on the bottom of Daf Kuf Vav Amid Aleph and Bava Metzia. So it could be that he's saying, since I'm focused and it's Achas Shalti, so B'zois Ani B'teach. In any case, the Ibn Ezra says that the B'zois Ani B'teach goes back to the Achas Shalti. Now, you know, Achas Shalti Me'ez Hashem Oisa Avakesh. Shalti is a past tense. I did ask. Avakesh is either a Lashon Osid or a Hoive Hamasnid. Something that's ongoing, that's all the time, is also a Lashon Avakesh. So there's an emphasis over here that it's not only that I have only one bakosha, but ever since that's been my bakosha, and forever this will be my only bakosha. In other words, Achas Sha'alti and Oisa Avakesh. So what is the meaning and significance of this statement? You know, David HaMelech started off as a youngster. He was already Nimshach LaMalchus al Yedei Shmuel. And from that point on, he knew he had ups and downs, tzaras, yisurim. He had painful twists and turns in his life. You know, in the beginning, he was brought as a Yodei Nagain, as a musician to the court of Shaul HaMelech, and then Shaul HaMelech was choshed. He was suspicious that he's going to undermine him, and he chased after him, and he wanted to kill him, and he escaped to Noiv, and from there he escaped to Achish Melech Gas Haplishti. That's the Ledovit B'Shanoisa Yistamoy L'fnei Avimelech. From there he ran to the Ma'oros Adullam, and his life was really in a sakana until he escaped to Moav, and from there he came back to Nachlas Yehuda, and he was in the forest of Chores, and Shaul was still trying to kill him, even after he married his daughter, and he escapes again to Noiv, and from there to Ke'ilah, and from there to Midbar Zif, and from there to Engedi, and from there to a cave in the Midbar, etc., etc. And even after he became a king and l'chayre, all his wishes came true, I mean, he has a rebellious son, Avshalom, that is trying to kill him. So, b'noyek sheba'olam, even somebody that has a great vision and has big she'ifas in the beginning, but when he has nothing and he's being threatened, he's being chased after, so his thoughts are all about getting rid of the immediate threat. He's not now focused on the big dream. I mean, it's a matter of getting through the day. Yeah. But David HaMelech is saying that in every matziv and in every Indian, Achas Sha'alti Me'ez Hashem and Oisa Avakesh, I've always been asking for the same thing. Regardless of all the painful twists and turns that I experienced in my life, I had one focus, and it never changed. And Adrabah, because I was always living with the vision of Achas Sha'alti Me'ez Hashem, all the negative experiences paled legabe the big dream. Now there's a fascinating Yalkut Shimoni. The Yalkut Shimoni says, Achas Sha'alti Me'ez Hashem, it's tough shin vav in the Yalkut Shimoni. Achas Sha'alti Me'ez Hashem, Omar Rabba Bakahana, Malchus Shaul. that what's the achas shalti? He asked for malchus. Not clear. How do we see that achas shalti says shifti beveis Hashem kol yomei chai? How do we see that it's malchus? It could be because the halacha is ein yeshiva ba'azora elo lemalchei beis David bilvad. So achas shalti meis Hashem shivti beveis Hashem kol yomei chai. So it's malchus shol, because only if he becomes a melech will he be able to be shifti beveis Hashem, to sit in the Azorah. However, whatever the pshat is, how the Medrash knows that the achas shalti is malchus shol. So Avad is poshit that David HaMelech wants malchus because he knows that that's his mission in this world. That's his task. And he's not Mesiach Das from his life's mission, regardless of how difficult things get and how impossible it looks. It's achas shalti and oisa avakesh. He's always focused on that dream of realizing his potential and fulfilling his mission. And every Yid, we say, Kol Yisrael, B'nai Melachim Heim, which means that we shouldn't settle for less. We shouldn't be busy with surviving. We should never forget what we really ought to be. Malchus Shal, we say on Rosh Hashanah, Sheni Yeh L'Rosh. The Targum Yonis Ben Azil in this week's parsha says on Unesoncha Hashem L'Rosh V'Loi L'Zonov. He says V'Yemane Memre Da Hashem Yaschoin L'Malchim V'Loi L'Hedyotin. So Unesoncha Hashem L'Rosh means we should be kings. So when we say Sheni Yeh L'Rosh, we're actually saying Malchus Shal, and Memela, that's the achas shalti and the oisa avakish. Another way to understand the achas shalti oisa avakish is that's why he begins with a lashon avar and he continues with a lashon osid or a hoiva hamasmid, is based on what the Malbim says, that she'ela, to ask. So people sometimes ask for something, but that's not really their mavukish. It's not really what they want. They're asking for A in order to get to B. But bakosha, the mavukish, means that that's my goal, that's what I want. So that's what the Malbim says. The pasuk says, Ki koroi ve'lecha hadavar ma'oid beficha ubilvavcha la'aseisei. L'chera, you think first and then you talk. So why does the pasuk say beficha ubilvavcha? It should be bilvavcha ubeficha. So you're talking that the pshat is like the Mesilas Yesharim writes in the end of Perek Zion, that the chitzonius is ma'or the pnimius. He says even if a person is not a zoris, he can make himself into a zoris by acting as a zoris. He will become a zoris. He says haislatus hachitzonis will bring the hislatus hapnimis. So, and that's the idea that the chinuch repeats many, many times. Ha'adam nifal lefi pu'uloisov. A person is impacted by what he does. A person's personality is shaped by what he does. Ha'adam nifal lefi pu'uloisov achar ha'pu'ulois nimshachim halavavos. So that's the beficha ubelvavcha. So it could be, as we see that most of the tough ratio gimel mitzvahs are all about doing and not doing. Obviously, this is a core belief in Yiddishkeit, that what we do is what makes us who we become, and we could ray with a finger all day and nothing really changes. If a person wants to change his character, it's by doing positive things and not by talking about it and thinking about it. So David says that in the beginning, it was achas shalti. I asked for it. It wasn't yet the bakosha. It wasn't yet my pnimius dika bakosha. But in spite of the fact that it wasn't yet my pnimius dika bakosha, achas shalti, I asked for it. In other words, on a chitzonius dika level. But I reached the madrega of oisa avakesh, that it actually became what I was asking for, became my bakosha, and to be shifty beveis Hashem, kol yemei chayai, lachzois b'noyam Hashem, u'levake be'echoloi. Okay, Rabbi Say, I wish you all a good Shabbos, and we should be zoiche to, it's easier said than done, but as we're saying, it's important to say it, and by saying it enough times, maybe it will have ashpa. Okay, seid gesund.